You're listening to A Light in the Dark on Faith FM. I'm John Weeks, and I got Peter Watts with me as well. Our weekly show that we put out each Wednesday at this time of the day. Welcome to the show. And Peter, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, John. It's great to be back here on A Light in the Dark, which is the show that goes out each week. But we're doing a little mini-series right now, which is called Is God for Real? And today we're going to be covering episode 3, which is Creation Credible? And so in our first two topics, we in the series of Is God for Real? We looked at, does God exist? What is the evidence for God's existence? And what difference does that make as humans for us? What a difference does it make? And then the second one was, which God? And we said, is there anything you can trust or anyone you can trust? And we were looking particularly at the Bible, the Word of God, the book that has been really the foundation of the Western world for the last 500 years and more. And so we looked at, is the Bible credible? It's an old book written a long time ago. And is it credible? Is it reliable? And we looked at lots of lines of evidence to support that. And so then, of course, naturally, I mean, you and I, John, we were not believers in the God of the Bible.
No.
But now we are. So something has changed. And you've shared your testimony on this program, and I know I have through the years. And so there was a change. We were not believers in the God of the Bible. We became believers in the God of the Bible. And obviously, if we're talking about, is God for real? Does God exist? Can we trust the Bible? Then we come to the subject of creation, which is right there on the first page and the first line of the Bible. And I guess that's probably one of the things that people would say, well, I'm sure there are some truthful things in the Bible, but when you come to the 6-day creation, surely you're not expecting me to believe.
That's how I approached it when I was an atheist. And it's a relevant question.
Very relevant question. So when we talk, what we're going to talk about today, John, is origins. And talk about where did we come from. And there really are obviously two competing theories. Well, there is another one we'll talk about maybe in a minute. Two competing theories. One is, of course, the biblical account. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then it spells out the 6 days of creation, and then God rested for a day and called us to rest. That's why we have a 7-day week, and caused mankind to rest every seventh day, to look back on that creation, to reflect not only on the creation, but the one who created it ultimately. So there's the special creation. And then, of course, there's evolution, which is the life arose all by itself over a long, long period of time. Small changes occurred. Life arose from non-living material. We talked a little bit about that in the first episode. And then changes took place to those living organisms that did arise. And eventually, over millions of years, you get everything that we see here. There is a third sort of theory. It's sometimes called panspermia.
Yes.
Maybe you've heard of that, John?
I sort of looked at that before I was a Christian. I thought, it makes sense, but no.
And what's fascinating, by the way, and we'll talk about this through the show, is that really panspermia was only come up with because they were looking at the odds of evolution arising and life arising all by itself and saying it's just not really plausible for life to arise from non-living matter all by itself. Therefore, they postulate panspermia, which is aliens from somewhere else came and started the process here. And what's fascinating about that to me, John, is it's almost an admission of the failure of the theory of evolution to say that we actually need somebody from somewhere else to start life here. But hang on, doesn't the creationist say that someone from somewhere else created life here? Isn't that so? In other words, it's kind of like we don't want it to be biblical creation because we don't want to be accountable to anybody. And so we're fine with little green men coming and starting life here and then them going away, and we've got no accountability to them. We make our own rules. We do what we want. We live how we like. That's more what's the word I'm looking for, more favourable to many people than the idea that there is a God who actually created us, to whom we are accountable. So, but basically, creation or evolution, those are the two models, and those are the two things we're going to look at. And when we talk about evolution, John, I think sometimes I did biology at school. You probably did too. And in biology, you know, we talk about organic evolution, if you like. But actually, there are various theories of evolution with regard to the different kinds of sciences. So, for instance, there's a theory of cosmic evolution, the origin of time and matter. Where did that come from, right? There's an evolutionary theory about that. There's an evolutionary theory about chemical evolution. How did chemicals arise? You know, you've got the periodic table with all the chemicals and whatever. Okay. Then number 3, there is stellar or planetary evolution. How did the stars and planets form? There's a theory about that, and some of us have seen documentaries about that.
And it's a theory.
It's a theory. Then you've got number 4, organic evolution, and that is how did life arise from non-living material? Then you've got number 5, macro evolution. Macro evolution is one kind of creature slowly over time turning into another kind of creature.
Yep.
All right. And then finally, there's microevolution. Microevolution are the changes that we do observe within creatures over time that adapt to their environment.
Or their biological needs.
Yeah, that's right. And so what I would say is there is evidence for microevolution. We see it, it's observable. It's what Darwin observed actually in the Galapagos Islands, sometimes referred to as Darwin's finches. He noticed that as he visited the various islands, some birds had big beaks, some birds had little beaks, and they were adapted to their environment for getting their various kinds of food source.
And to survive.
And so we might call this survival of the fittest. We might also call it adaptation. But that's microevolution. So what I want to say is that the other forms of evolution, there are theories, but our observable evidence only meets with microevolution. And so, we would say, well, do you believe in evolution or not? We have to be careful and say, well, I do believe in microevolution, but for our purposes, John, we're going to talk about that as adaptation or natural selection, but we're not going to talk about evolution so much from that side. We're going to talk about creation or evolution. And when we talk about evolution, we're really talking about macro evolution there. That is one kind of creature turning into another kind of creature, which I don't think we observe.
No.
In other words, dogs produce dogs, cats produce cats, cows produce cows. You don't hatch, you don't have a chicken lay an egg and a dinosaur comes out.
In fact, there's no transitional creature in that time span.
Well, we're going to actually look at the fossil record in this program. So stay tuned. What do we got? We're still motoring along. Sometimes, John, I wanted the listeners to understand this. And again, we're coming at this, you and I, from a position where we did not believe in the God of the Bible. We did not believe in six-day creation. Now, both of us do.
Yeah.
And it's not because we lost our mind, but rather we found out there was a lot more evidence around than we had maybe previously considered.
Oh, my goodness, yes. Yeah. Yes, totally.
So I want to say to the listeners, sometimes this conversation is framed with the idea of God versus science. And I have a typical example in front of me here. This is Time magazine from the 13th of November 2006. And on the cover it says, God versus Science, a spirited debate between atheist biologist Richard Dawkins and Christian geneticist Francis Collins. So here's the thing. On the cover there, how many scientists have you got?
2.
You've got 2. You've got the biologist and the geneticist.
Yes, that's it.
Right? However, the headline is God versus science.
Yeah.
And so this is misleading.
Absolutely.
Because there you have 2 scientists, one believes in God and one does not.
In fact, you could almost say that's a deception.
It really is. It's a very common supposition, I think, that if you believe in science, you can't believe in God.
Yep.
And when we come back, John, we're going to have a little music break in a minute. But when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about a book written by a friend of mine, edited by a friend of mine, where he was asked to put together a list of scientists who are doing science who actually do believe in the God of creation, actually believe in 6 days. We'll come back to that after the break.
We will indeed. You're listening to A Light in the Dark on the Faith FM. If you want to send a text message, 0488 880 831. We've got a track now by the Isaacs and a track called Least I Can Go. So hope you enjoy it. We'll be back shortly.
Well, he chose me. When I could not choose him. Well, he loved me. Long before I knew him. Well, he died for me long before my life began. The least I can do is live for him. I'm glad he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Yes, he was talking to the multitude there that day, but I know he was thinking about me and you. Well, he chose me. When I could not choose him. Well, he loved me long before I knew him. Well, he died for me long before my life began. The least I can do is live for him. You know he had mercy. Let me tell you about mercy. About Jesus' love and wondrous grace. Well, he sought me, bought me, saved me, forgave me, keeps me, and every day leads me, and someday I'm gonna thank him face to face. Oh yeah. Well, he chose me. When I could not choose him. Well, he loved me. Long before I knew him. Well, he died for me long before my life began. The least I can do is live for him. Well, he chose me. When I could not choose him. Well, he loved me long before I knew him. Well, he died for me long before my life began. The least I can do is live for him. The least I can do is live for him. I'm gonna live my life for him.
Oh, very soulful track there from the Isaacs, Least I Can Go. You're listening to A Light in the Dark on Faith FM. I'm John Weeks and Peter Watts is with me. Peter.
Yeah, well, let's continue. So this is, in our series, Is God for Real? Today we're talking about, is creation credible? And it may surprise a lot of people, John, to find that there are quite a few scientists who believe in 6 days, that God created in 6 days. And you think, well, how is this possible?
Yep.
And, of course, most people wouldn't know that, right? Your average person down the street, would say, would you think that there are any scientists who believe God created in 6 days? Most people probably not, because I went to school and learned evolution, so did you. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think, I thought that was the only explanation. I thought that was true. I thought that there was no other credible possibility.
Yes.
And yet, not all scientists believe in evolution. So there's this book called In 6 Days, Why 50 Scientists Choose to Believe in Creation. It's edited by a friend of mine, Dr. John Ashton, PhD in chemistry. By the way, he wrote a book, Dr. John Ashton. He's written a number of books. One of the books he wrote was called Evolution Impossible. And he argues the case from chemistry, which is his speciality, as to why chemical evolution is impossible. But I'll leave that to the experts. Mm-hmm. However, in this book, the way this book came about, there was a female student in one of our universities in Sydney. She was a Christian. She went to the university. And the lecturer up the front said, no one with a PhD in the sciences would ever believe that God created in 6 days. Mm. And she thought about that. She thought, I'm sure I know somebody who does. And so she talked to John Ashton. And John Ashton said, well, I know other people. Here's some other people to talk to. And John eventually got together a list of 80 scientists that he either knew or knew of.
That's impressive.
80 scientists.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Who believe in 6 days. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so he asked them all to write an essay on why they believed that God created from their field of science. And these were biologists, microbiologists, mathematicians, zoologists, all different veins of science.
Mm-hmm.
And he took the best 50, put them in a book. So in 6 days, why 50 scientists choose to believe in creation. So I'd recommend that book to people because, again, it comes from a wide variety of the different scientists.
Yeah. I mean, one of the questions you can just easily throw out is, why is there something instead of nothing?
Well, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, usually there's a cause, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're talking about an uncaused first cause, which we would say is God. Some people say, well, that's the Big Bang. Right, but there are a lot of problems with the Big Bang, and that's not me just saying that as a skeptic. There are a lot of scientists in the astronomy field who have problems with the Big Bang.
Yes.
And so we don't have to just swallow the Big Bang holus bolus and say, yes, that's, scientific, it's definitely true.
But if you did, though, then you could ask the question, who was the Big Banger?
Well, that's true. Or also, what happened before the Big Bang?
Yes.
And so it's along, you've got eternity past to deal with, John.
You do.
That's a challenge.
Indeed.
There was, usually in the news, you'll get big headlines about evolution and so forth. But sometimes you'll get a headline. So this was back in 2000, the Herald Sun, Paul Gray writing an article, Melbourne paper, says science is reconsidering its belief that life happened by chance. And he's talking about, the fact that there are scientists who are exploring that. There was a lift out in 1999, the Herald Sun newspaper, they had a lift out, I think it was the Sunday paper, news front, and on the cover it says Divine Science. There's a 4 to 8 page lift out or something. It says, first came the Big Bang, much later the first spark of life in a primordial soup. A swamp, a cell, a swamp, an ape, a human. It's a common thread in every science book, familiar to every student. But many scientists believe the origins of life are very different. The evidence, they say, is clear and compelling. It points not to evolution, but to creation, a deliberate act by an intelligent God.
Yep.
And even if we think, John, sometimes people say, that creation stuff, it's just unscientific.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you think about the fathers of modern science.
Yes.
Sir Isaac Newton, physics. Leonardo da Vinci, hydraulics. Michael Faraday, electric generator. James Joule, electric current. Robert Boyle, gas dynamics. Louis Pasteur, bacteriology. Joseph Lister, and antiseptic. Johannes Kepler, the celestial mathematics. All of these people believed in the God of the Bible. And yet they are the fathers of modern science. So rather than hindering science, in many ways it was the Christian faith that launched modern science.
Yes.
And so this notion that it's unscientific, the bottom line is you're either saying that nothing created everything, or you're saying an intelligent being with unlimited resources made something. And we are human beings, John. Every person listening to this is a creator of some kind.
Yep.
Whether you're making a sandwich or building a building or building a space rocket, we're all creators. And where do we get that creative impetus? And why do we believe that somebody intelligent can make something? Well, because we see it every day. We do it every day.
Yes.
Right? And so the idea that and our problem is grasping the bigness of God.
Yes. Huge.
It's so big. I mean, you think of the vastness of the universe. For somebody to bring that into being, they've got to be pretty big.
And in fact, our mind really is struggling to comprehend how awesome that is. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about that some more later on in this particular program. I want to jump on to a question I think is all important in this particular conversation, and that is, how old is the Earth?
Yes.
I think it's a really important question. Because obviously from an evolutionary point of view, from a geological evolutionary point of view, they'll, bring up rocks and say they're, millions or billions of years old. And, you go to some place like the Grand Canyon and you've got layers of sediment there, layers of sedimentary rock, and they'll say there's millions of layers, millions of years of history there. So the question is, how old is the Earth? How old are the rocks? And how could we possibly know? You don't dig it, you pick up a rock. It doesn't say, hi, I'm 300 million years old. There are no messages on the rock.
Nope.
So how do they do it? Well, first of all, I think it's very interesting to understand how they measure the dates of rocks. Because if we don't understand that, we're just going to take for granted, they found this rock, it's 300 million years old or whatever.
Yep.
Well, They use radiometric dating methods. What they do, John, is they take the rock, they slice it up, and they examine that rock in a laboratory, find out what is in the rock, what's it made up of. Yeah. And they use radiometric dating methods. So potassium, argon, uranium, lead, rubidium, strontium, these are the types of methods they will use to date rocks. So let's take the uranium-lead model for a moment. Uranium is radioactive. And it loses its radioactivity over time. And it's sometimes called a half-life. In other words, how long does it take before half of that radioactivity has lost?
Yes.
And it might be 57,000 years or whatever, you know. So let's take the uranium-lead model. So you take a piece of rock and you say, how much lead is in it? How much uranium is it? We know the current rate of decay for the uranium. And then we say, bingo, there's this much lead in it, therefore it's decayed this much. We know the date of the rock, 300 million years old, whatever.
Yep.
However, we have to think about, John, are there any problem? Is there a watertight argument? Was anybody there 300 million years ago to observe the rock in the beginning?
Not at all.
No. So how do we know that this is a closed experiment, right? So here's some problems with those methods that we've just described. How much of each substance was in the rock originally? What if lead was present in that rock to begin with? That is going to dramatically alter your appreciation of how old that rock is, because you're estimating there was no lead at the beginning.
That's right.
But if there was lead present, that would change the date of the rock.
Yes.
But nobody was present to check.
No.
It's not in a laboratory for 300 million years, and we're watching it and examining it, making sure the temperature's just right or whatever else.
It's not observable.
It's not observable evidence. It's what it is. It's observing what it's made up of right now.
Yep.
We can examine it in the here and now.
But not.
But then you have to go back in time to demonstrate what you think it would be. So how much of each substance was in the rock originally? Here's another one. Has the decay rate remained constant over millions of years? Because they know that there are some of these substances that can change their decay rate over time. And then thirdly, was any of each substance added by an environmental change or catastrophic event, such as an earthquake, volcanic eruption or flooding? Because those things can have an effect.
Incredible.
So there are challenges to these methods, John.
Okay, we get another music break, and this one is by Claudette Powell, and a track called, pretty familiar actually, How Shall We Gather by the River? You've heard of that one.
I like that song.
So do I. Just love it. You're listening to A Light in the Dark with Pete. I'm John Weeks and Peter Watts.
Shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing from the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows from the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up its silver spray,
Yes, you're listening to A Light in the Dark on Faith FM. I'm John Weeks, and this is a really interesting topic we're dealing with.
I think it's one of the most interesting topics. I once heard a scientist say, I wonder why anybody talks about anything else.
Yes. So I've been looking forward this week to hear all this. So, Peter, I can keep going.
You're right. So we've been talking about creation and evolution. We're asking the question, is creation credible? And so we were talking about the dating methods. And so the biblical story is that God created this world in a 6-day period. And then something went tragically wrong, and we can talk about the sin problem. We'll do that later in the series. But also there was a global flood. In the book of Genesis, from Genesis 6 through 9, 4 chapters about the biblical flood. People should read those. But the biblical flood changed the complexion of our world dramatically. Okay, so, and by the way, that's where I believe many of the fossils come from. Not all of them, but most of the fossils, I believe, came from the biblical flood. We're going to talk more about that as we get onto this. We were talking about dating methods and how people arise at these dates for the earth, 300 million years. Sometimes the bedrock of the earth, they think, is 4.5 billion years. So let me read this. This is from Frederick Juniman. It was written in 1982, and he wrote an article called Secular Catastrophism in a paper called Industrial Research and Development. He says, the age of our globe is presently thought to be some 4.5 billion years based on radioactive rates of uranium and thorium. Such confirmation may be short-lived, as nature is not to be discovered quite so easily. Yes. There has been in recent years the horrible realization that radio decay rates are not as constant as previously thought, nor are they immune to environmental influences. And this could mean that the atomic clocks are reset during some global disaster, and events which brought the Mesozoic period to a close may not be 65 million years ago, but rather within the age and memory of man. So this guy who understands the dating methods, he's saying it might not be 4.5 billion or even 65 million years ago. But when he says the events that brought the Mesozoic period to a close in 65 million years ago, that's the age when the dinosaurs are supposed to have become extinct. And he's saying, but they might not be 65 million years ago. They might be within the age and memory of man. If we're wrong about the dating methods. And we're going to hang on to that because we're going to talk about the dinosaurs a little later in this show, John. Here's another quote from William D. Stanfield. He's a PhD at California Polytechnic State University. Notice what he writes here. He says, it is obvious that radiometric techniques may not be the absolute dating methods they are claimed to be. He's saying it's obvious. And he wrote this decades ago, right?
Yep.
Age estimates on a given geological stratum by different radiometric methods are often quite different, sometimes by hundreds of millions of years. There is no absolutely reliable long-term radiological clock. The uncertainties inherent in radiometric dating are disturbing to geologists and evolutionists. And so he's pointing this out. So in other words, you get a rock, send it to one lab, get it dated by one method, 250 million years. Same piece of rock. Cross town to another lab, different dating method, 300 million years.
Yep.
Well, which is it, John? And sometimes they're vastly different.
Yep.
And the question is, which one would you trust? Sometimes, John, they find pieces of wood encapsulated in rock. So rock is formed around a piece of wood. Wood they can date. They often will date test by carbon dating. Carbon dating works on things that were once living, like wood and bone and stuff like that. So they can they'll date the wood as thousands of years old. Then they'll date the rock as millions of years old. Yet the rock formed around the wood, the rock is younger than the wood.
It defeats the argument, doesn't it?
So the question is, so there's a real problem with these dating methods.
Now, one of the things I just want to share with you, in the last 13 years, when I was a Christian, I started reading, I still read scientific magazines, publications, you name it.
Sure.
I've created a time frame of different quotes from different magazines.
Right.
And the stories, the theories, whatever, they all are so varied. And there's no consistency.
That's right.
From different sciences, like anything from National Geographic to scientific, whatever it is, magazine that comes out. And I'm thinking, I've got no idea because it's so inconsistent.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, here's, I mean, another thing that when they get dates that are, that they arrive at dates that don't fit the paradigm, they just say, well, there must have been something wrong, and they throw it down. They don't publish that.
Yes.
And so this brings us on to the fossil record. Because does the fossil record provide conclusive evidence for for evolution, rather? Because I think many people believe that they do, right? And so I want to read this. This is Dr. David Raup in an article called Conflicts Between Darwin and the Paleontology. And he wrote this in 1979. And I put the dates in there because I want people to know that this stuff has been known for a while.
Yeah, good.
He writes this. He says, Darwin's theory of natural selection has always been closely linked to evidence from fossils. And probably most people assume that fossils provide a very important part of the general argument that is made in favour of Darwinian interpretations of the history of life. Unfortunately, this is not strictly true. So he's pointing out that the evidence for evolution isn't in the fossils, even though most people think it is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do we make a fossil, first of all, John? How do you make a fossil? Does it take millions of years to form a fossil? Well, you look at the Grand Canyon, you look at all those layers of rock. Fossils are found in layers of rock, and the fossil is dated by the rock around it. Okay? So that's how they date fossils. But can a fossil form rapidly? So first of all, I've got a picture here in front of me. It's called I've called it fast food, but it's of a fish, fossilized fish, in the process of eating another fish. Both of them preserved. Beautiful detail in the fossil.
Yeah.
This fish did not have chance to finish its meal before it was fossilized. How are you going to do that? You basically need to bury the whole scene in wet cement, trapping everything in that moment.
Encasing it.
And that wet cement dries, and then you have, over time, the fossilized remains. Fossilized remains are where the minerals have taken the place of the biological material. So the biological material is no longer there, but the impression is there in the fossilized mineral record.
Yes.
There's another one. There's another famous fossil of an ichthyosaur, which is an extinct marine creature. And this one's famous because this ichthyosaur is giving birth to another ichthyosaur in the fossil.
Oh, right. That'd be interesting.
Now, all the ladies listening out there, I don't know how long it takes to give birth, but not millions of years, that's for sure.
No.
Probably feels like millions of years.
They'd be groaning already.
And so, but this fossil ichthyosaur is giving birth to another ichthyosaur, and both of them are trapped instantaneously in this fossil record. And the only way you're going to do that is bury them in sediment instantly.
Very quickly.
And I believe a lot of the fossils on Earth today are as a result of the global flood. Sometimes they find fossils in the fossil record that you also find creatures here on Earth. So horseshoe crabs have been found in the fossil record, supposed to be millions of years old, but they're alive and swimming around today. And they're called living fossils. In other words, the question is, John, why have they not changed into something else?
Correct.
Because they're there in the fossil record. We have the living ones today. They're the same.
Yep.
Why have they not changed? In Darwin's time, he believed that you couldn't possibly, he thought that fossils formed over a long period of time. And he thought, well, you couldn't possibly get any soft tissued creatures fossilizing. But now we've found jellyfish fossilized. Now, you've seen jellyfish washed up on the beach.
Yeah.
They don't last too long in the midday sun.
Nope.
So you're only going to be able to preserve a jellyfish if you bury it rapidly. And by the way, John, you think about this, we've all seen roadkill, right? I saw some today as I was driving here. So let's say, a possum or a wombat gets hit, kangaroo, whatever, they're on the side of the road. And let's suppose you put a fence around it and say, do not disturb, fossilizing. Question is it going to fossilize?
No.
Why not?
It just deteriorates.
It's going to deteriorate. The natural processes are going to break that creature down. The wind and the rain are going to break that creature down.
All
and
the
then birds and other scavengers are going to come along and pick it to bits. And then the ants are going to have their feed. And the whole thing is going to fall apart.
Yep.
And it will not be fossilized because it takes very specific conditions to form a fossil, John. They don't just happen by accident. There was SBS TV had a show on a few years ago called The Hunt for Life. Dinosaurs, The Hunt for Life. It was on SBS.
Okay.
And they featured the story of Dr. Mary Schweitzer, who's an American paleontologist. Mm-hmm. And she was working in the 1990s. She was working on the leg of a T-Rex dinosaur.
Ooh.
Like the thigh bone, if you like,
that'd be
of a
big.
T-Rex dinosaur.
Yeah.
And she found soft, stretchy tissue in the leg bone. And she thought, this is interesting. And the question is asked, are these remains really 68 million years old?
Yep.
Well, she started doing experiments. She took it to her boss, a guy called Dinosaur Jack Horner.
Oh, good name.
And he said, well, you can't be that. Go and find out what it is. And they did 17 different experiments to try and determine that this was not soft, stretchy tissue in the leg of a dinosaur. Yeah. And they concluded that it was soft, stretchy tissue. They found blood vessels and blood cells.
What a find.
In this T-Rex dinosaur leg. And so then what do you think they concluded, John? This is the amazing thing. Most, not all, but most of the scientific community is so committed to naturalistic Darwinism that they cannot conceive of any other. They said, well, look at this. Maybe the soft tissue can last 68 million years. Instead of saying, hang on, this looks a lot younger.
Yeah.
This doesn't look like it was fossilized 65 million years ago. Instead of admitting that it looks young, they had to say, no, maybe this material lasts a lot longer.
There's a certain arrogance in here, isn't it?
I think it's a denial of the other possibility.
That's a better word.
Because I think what it is, John, is I'm very happy for people to learn what each of the two models produces and to listen to scientists on both models and which are the facts that fit the model. And I believe, and this is certainly my experience and probably yours, John, that I'm utterly convinced that it's creation now.
Oh, totally.
I've learned too much about evolution now to believe that it's actually true. Chicago Conference on Evolution, Newsweek magazine, 3rd of October 1980. They wrote, there was somebody doing a report on the evolution conference, and they said, this is 1980. Evidence from fossils now points overwhelmingly away from the classical Darwinism most Americans learned in school. That was in 1980. That was an evolution conference, and it's in Newsweek magazine.
Incredible, incredible. You're listening to Light in the Dark, and the topic is creation credible? We'd love to get a text message. You've got a comment question, 04 88 880 831. I've got a book offer after this.
Giving clean clothes and food to eat, God can. I know God can. Who can take a heart turned bitter and cold, make it brand new so it shines like gold? God can. I know God can. God can take away all your pain, make the sunshine chase the rain. Yesterday, today, and forever the same. All you gotta do is just call his name. God can. I know God can. Who can reach down to the trembling hand of a child that's abused and they can't understand? God can. I know God can. God can take away all your pain, make the sunshine chase the rain. Yesterday, today, and forever the same. All you gotta do is just call his name. I know my God can take away all your pain, make the sunshine chase the rain. Yesterday, today, and forever the same. All you gotta do is just just call his name.
Like a bit of bluegrass music. And that's something that, I usually slip them in on the show at Light in the Dark. But we'd love to get, again, I just want to promote the text line firstly. It's 0488 880 831. It's a fascinating topic that we're dealing with here, and we'd love to get your response. So you may have a question that you want to put to us, to Peter, and we'll try to answer it the best way we can. We've also got a question we'd love to throw at you. And the question is, what evidence of creation do you see in the natural world? Simple question, but you may have a comment. You may see things that you think, that's why, that sort of thing. So, again, if you've got a little message you want to send to us, 0488 880 831, why you got that number in your head? We're going to give a book offer. The book offer is Creation and Evolution, and it's written by Dwight K. Nelson. And we'd love to send that out to you. No, there's no obligation. It's special free office, I should say. And if you type in ALD92 to that text line, 0488 880 831, our team will be able to organise that booklet to be sent to you. So keep all that in mind. We got another 15 minutes to go. So, don't hesitate, Peter.
Thanks, John. Okay, so we were talking about the age of the earth. There's a fascinating line in the Bible, John. I don't know if you've got it there. Job 38, verse 4.
Okay, yep, 38. Yeah,
God asks a question.
Yeah,
go for it.
Okay, now prepare yourself. Oh, no, sorry. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
Yeah, so that's the question.
Yeah.
Where were you when God is saying to Job,
yes.
Where were you when I laid? And obviously he's like, I wasn't there. So in other words, we make these assertions, I guess, in the press and everywhere. The world is millions of years old, and this is how it happens. But none of us were there to observe it, John. And I think that this is important. We have observable evidence. What is the best explanation of what we see around us?
Yeah.
Is it creation or evolution? And people will say, but how did God create? And there's another couple of verses I'd like to read, John. First, Psalm 33, verse 6, and then verse 9.
Okay.
Psalm 33, verse 6, and then verse 9.
Okay, by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth.
And verse 9.
For he spoke, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast.
All right, so here we have God speaking things into being, right?
Yes.
So the Bible tells us how he does it. He speaks it into being. Well, how is that possible? John, most people listening to this show have got phones or they've got cars that can be operated by voice recognition.
Yep.
Is that true?
Yep.
And so I can program my phone to respond to the sound of my voice, and I can, be driving along and I say, call my wife or whatever, and it will respond because it's built in to respond to the sound of my voice. I don't know how God does it because his pay grade is way above mine, right? Like that. He is so way beyond my abilities. It's not even, when we say, how did God create? It's a little bit me like saying to the dog, how did I build your kennel?
Yes.
He's got no possible comprehension of the question, much less how to answer it. And so the fact that we can build devices that can respond to the sound of our voice, what if God built into every atom the ability to respond to his voice? And he said, let there be, and it was. And so I do not know how God does it, but we are, John, we're getting into the realms of technology where we're getting a glimpse of how that could be possible. 300 years ago, on my phone, I can talk to my mum face-to-face in England in real time. And I've done that. And if I had said that I could do that 300 years ago, I'd probably be arrested.
You'd be in. They'll accuse you of being insane.
500 years ago, they'd have burned me at the stake for witchcraft.
Most likely.
Right? So the point is, we have changed our understanding of what's possible, right? We now know that things exist that are invisible. I mean, people are listening to this radio station because of things that are invisible,
Yep.
right? And so God's technology is so way beyond ours that it is
Incomprehensible.
incomprehensible. And so when we talk about evolution, we're really talking about life from non-living matter. How could that possibly have arisen? So Fred Hoyle was a British astronomer. He talks about the theory of evolution, and in 1981, he wrote, "The chance that higher life forms might have emerged in this way is comparable with the chance that a tornado sweeping through a junkyard might assemble a Boeing 747 from the materials therein."
Love that.
I mean,
Yeah.
the idea that a tornado ripping through a junkyard is going to create this magnificent plane that flies would be, I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
People would not accept that because we know that chaos does not produce order.
No.
Chaos produces more chaos. Order can turn to chaos. You put a tornado through it, right?
Yep.
But chaos does not produce order. And when you think then of a 747, how does a 747 come about? It's intelligent people designing it, then bringing the parts, the millions of parts together to form that craft. It's intelligent design and creative ability that make the aeroplane fly, because the wings don't fly. You break them off, they don't fly. The engines don't fly.
Nope.
The tail doesn't fly. The guy in the cockpit, he can't fly.
Yes.
It flies because of intelligent design and creative ability. And when we compare a 747 to the birds, how do we learn to fly anyway, John? You know, we've only really been flying aircraft for about 100 years. How do we get that? How do we get that far? Well, we looked at birds.
We were inspired by the birds.
The birds have been around for a while, John.
That's it.
In fact, they've been allowed, even in the creation model, they've been around before us, a day before us.
And living in the mountain ranges, I see a lot of them.
Yeah, beautiful. Birds are fantastic.
I know.
They really are. Yeah. But birds are more complicated than a 747.
Oh, yeah.
They can feed themselves, navigate themselves, and they can even reproduce after themselves. I never saw a 747 do that.
Nope.
And so the Bible says in Job 12:7-9, it says, "But now ask the beasts, and they will teach you, and the birds of the air, and they will tell you. Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, and the fish of the sea will explain to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this?" So in other words, what God is trying to say us here through the word is, as we examine the natural world, the birds, the beasts, the fish, we're going to learn more about the one who created them. You know, maybe you've heard of spontaneous generation. 500 years ago, they believed in spontaneous generation. That is that, you know, if you've got a pile of garbage in the corner and suddenly you see flies and rats there, oh, they spontaneously produced flies and rats. Well, no. The garbage attracted the flies and the rats, right?
That's right, yeah.
But it was Aristotle, the Greek philosopher Aristotle, wrote about spontaneous generation of life from non-living matter. It was considered scientific fact for 2,000 years. It was disproved by Louis Pasteur in 1862. And we started to learn about germs and other things after that. And so we now know that life does not come from non-living matter. Life comes from life. And yet the evolutionist, the hardcore evolutionist, has to say life came from non-living matter.
Oh, yeah.
And we just don't observe that, John. We just don't.
No. I remember seeing a quote from Richard Dawkins, and he said, "The universe is nothing but a collection of atoms in motion. Human beings are simply machines for propagating DNA."
Well, if that's true, John, it doesn't matter if I kill you then.
Yes.
Like that takes out the morals. And we
Takes
actually
out the morals.
We talked about morals in the first one, and
Indeed.
we quoted, I think, Dawkins in that program a couple of shows back. But think about this from an evolutionary point of view. Imagine you've got a frog, and then you've got a blender. Don't try this at home, folks.
I'm not quite sure where this is leading to.
Do not try this at home. This is an imaginary concept.
Okay.
You've got a frog, and you put some water in the blender, then you pop the frog in, then you turn on the blender. Bzzz. Okay, here's the question, John. How many ingredients needed to make a frog are in the blender? All of them.
All of them.
They're all there. We just put the frog in. We put a whole frog in.
And the whole...
All the ingredients needed to make a frog are in the blender.
Yep.
Question, how long before it becomes a frog again?
Yeah, see? Yeah.
And I'm giving you all the ingredients.
Yes, you are.
You understand?
Yes.
So the point here is we know instinctively, well, it doesn't matter how long you wait, that ain't becoming a frog again.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
It's a mess.
And yet, even though all the pieces needed to make a frog are all there.
Yeah.
So I think people actually recognise that this, sometimes say, if we can just synthesize life in a laboratory, then we'll have proven that no intelligence was necessary to form life in the beginning.
And that's a serious thought that's going around even to this day.
But they don't realise that the lab only exists because people built it.
That's it.
The experiment only exists because we're putting the experiment together. We're using our intelligence to try and put together things that we think could possibly mix together. And then we're going to say, it all happened by itself.
Yep.
No, it didn't. It had a lot of help. I remember hearing about a creationist who was on a live radio show like this, John. It was a talkback radio show, and somebody rang in and said, one of these days we're going to create life in a laboratory, and that'll be the end of you creationists. And the creationist said, well, don't you realise that if you did produce life in a laboratory, it'd have nothing to do with evolution and everything to do with the intelligence you're putting into that experiment?
Yes.
And the caller said, we are not putting intelligence into our experiments.
So what are you doing?
And so, we can get into all sorts of knots.
Oh, yeah.
The Bible says of human beings, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, says, then God said, let us make man in our image.
Yeah.
So not only is the origin of life from creation, we're talking specifically about mankind. God, you read the book of Genesis, it tells you that God made the world, he made the plants, he made the water, he made, the birds and the beasts and so forth, but then he makes mankind. Let us make man in our image, it says, according to our likeness. So human beings are made in the image of God, John. This is really very important because it means we are not just animals. You can go down to the supermarket, whether it's Coles, Woolies, IGA, whatever it may, Aldi, whatever it may be, and you might be able to buy a leg of lamb or a leg of ham, but you cannot buy a leg of man.
No.
Why not? Why can't you buy a leg of man? Well, that would be morally reprehensible.
Absolutely.
You could not do that. And I remember a story, maybe you do too, where Adam Goodes was a player for the Sydney Swans AFL.
No,
and the Swans were playing Collingwood, and somebody in the audience, a 13-year-old girl, I think, shouted at him, he called him an ape.
Oh.
And he regarded that as a racial slur.
Yeah.
And so Adam Goodes was rightly offended
Yes.
by that racial slur. Now, here's the thing, though, John. I went to school. You went to school too. I went to state school. I got taught evolution just like it was fact.
Same.
We are teaching our kids across the country and across the globe that you're nothing more than animals, that we came from apes. We're calling everybody an ape.
Yeah.
Why are we not rightly offended? Adam Goodes was rightly offended at being called an ape.
That's a good point.
But why are we not rightly offended when we're teaching this stuff to kids at high school and in university level?
Yeah.
And people say, well, Adam and Eve, do you really believe in that? Do you know that there's evidence molecularly that we all go back to one man and one woman? So I do believe that creation is credible. And I believe that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
And that's today's program of A Light in the Dark. You'll be away for a bit, and I'll be here each week. So I look forward to your company the same time that you listen to the show on Faith FM.
Thanks for listening.
Take care. God bless. Bye.